morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to this week's episode of the Quarterdeck. This week in our reading of our book, With the 1st Marine Division in Iraq in 2003, No Greater Friend, No Worst Enemy, we look at the date of 22 March as the division attacked to the west. In our hero highlights this week, we will take a look at the story and heroism of Private First Class John Dury, United States Marine Corps.
Drop and give me 25. I'm the gunny.
It's time for the gunning. It's time.
The Quarterdeck. Lights. Get online right now. You got 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Hello, my bunch of knuckle-dragging, beer-drinking, hard-charging devil dogs. You're listening to the Quarterdeck. I am your host, Miguel, the Gunny Signs.
Get off the bus!
I do solemnly swear.
That I will support and defend
The Constitution of the United States.
against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
Since the Marine Corps' existence, there has always been a commandant in the Marine Corps dating all the way back to General John J. Lejeune, who was considered to be the very first commandant of the Marine Corps. And right now, there was a change of command not too long ago where the current commandant of the Marine Corps, which was General David H. Berger, relinquished his command to General Eric M. Smith, who is now the current commandant of the Marine Corps. Now, if any of you have been following the news lately, we know that the commandant has been having some health issues and suffered from some cardiac issues that he was dealing with in the hospital. Now, ever since then, there's been updates on some of the things and the issues that have been going on with his health and stuff, and the Marine Corps has released a lot of updates on his condition. And right now, they went ahead and released another update, and this was from the 3rd of November that they released it. And what it says is that he is making a great progress following a sudden cardiac arrest that he suffered earlier in that week. So he has suffered the cardiac arrest, and his physical health and everything is based directly on how rapidly he is improving now that he's actually recovering in the hospital. And it is as expected because he's making great progress, and his family and loved ones are right there beside him to ensure that he's good. Now, once he is finally discharged from the hospital, he's going to continue to recover in the quarters of the commandant down there in the barracks down there in Washington, D.C., and then he's going to have to focus on his health before he turns back to full active duty. And he, of course, like any other service in the United States, there is always somebody there that's going to help to cover the responsibilities in the event that something should happen. So he took the opportunity to actually congratulate the assistant commandant of the Marine Corps, who is General Mahoney, who was confirmed by the Senate and was sworn in as the 37th Assistant Commandant of the Marine Corps. And this was by Secretary Del Toro. So General Smith is very aware that General Mahoney is performing all the duties of the Commandant until such time as he can resume back to his normal duties. And, that's basically like the backup taking over. So if you look at it like an NFL game, you got the first string quarterback, he's the second string. And he'll be able to actually, execute all the duties that he will be able to do. So he is very grateful that he has somebody as proficient and that is capable of handling all the different tasks that are going to be happening throughout the Marine Corps. And so right now, all he has to do is just basically focus on his recovery, his health, all that stuff and everything that he has to do. So he is extremely proud of how the Marine Corps does continue to protect this great nation throughout this time and everything. And besides that, his absence, he's not there. There's so many Marines that continue to be deployed and they're ready to respond to current threats. And he always has that on his mind. So when he returns back in the future, he'll be able to continue on with his duties. Now, along with that, as I mentioned, there's been commandants for many years. Now, when I first enlisted in the Marine Corps and I came into the fleet back in 1995, man, looking at that, it's like a dinosaur age in the Marine Corps, isn't it? But back then, it was General Krulak. He was the commandant of the Marine Corps. Now, we had the opportunity to actually meet General Krulak when he came down to Camp Pendleton California and actually talk to us down there in 5th Battalion, 11th Marines down there in Camp Las Flores. And, you know, of course, before any big head shed or higher ranking person comes down to talk to any Marines, all the leadership always talks to all the Marines and asks them, hey, you know, does anybody have questions? And they review the questions that they want to ask the Commandant because they want to make sure that they don't ask any kind of dumb question and they're aware of what questions are going to be asked to the Commandant to make sure that, you know, it's a question that he's going to be able to answer and they are not going to make the unit look like a bunch of idiots or stuff like that. So with that being said, the Commandant always comes down. Of course, Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps always comes down with him down there to see all the different units in the fleet. And that's something that they do annually because they always come down to see how training is going, how the manpower is being maintained in all the units. And all of you that have served and have an understanding of exactly that is. But everybody knows that when that happens, it's always a big, giant dog and pony show because everybody in the command, the higher enlisted and officers especially, want to make sure that everything is perfect when they come down to see their individual units. Now, if it was me as the Commandant or the Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps, you know, we know that units make a huge effort of making sure that everything is perfect when they come down. Now, is everything perfect all the time? No, there's always maintenance going on. There's always things that are broken, things that are not fixed that they have to get fixed and everything like that. So, you know, and they understand that kind of stuff. They understand that there's always going to be issues in the fleet, and that's what they want to know. They want to find out what the issues are because they want to make sure that they actually get the help and the funding and everything else that the units need in order for them to make sure that they're mission capable, that they're ready for a combat environment at a moment's notice. So that's the whole purpose of them coming down there, you know, and I want to just take the opportunity right now and, you know, wish him a speedy recovery, that he gets better so that way he can go ahead and take his position as Commandant of the Marine Corps back down there in the barracks down there in Washington, D.C. Now, those of you that have had the opportunity to go down there to D.C. and see an evening parade, if you haven't made your way down there and seen an evening parade down there in the fall, man, I strongly suggest that you see when you're able to make it down there. Now, one of the good things about the evening parade down there is when they do them there, it's not just that you show up and go there. You have to make a reservation and they'll invite you to go down there to the actual evening parade. Now, the attire for you to attend down there is business casual. You have to wear a business casual attire when you go down there to the evening parade. And it's truly amazing. If you've never seen it, you know, it's basically a formation. They have a formation with platoons and everything. And, you know, they dismiss the platoons. They take roll call, all that stuff. And they have basically the band, the evening parade band. They do the whole thing basically like a change of command almost, if you can imagine that. And then they play colors. They retire the colors. But they do it more in a kind of theatrical kind of way. And it's an amazing evening parade. If you get a chance to go see it, take a look at it and watch it. Now, I know that I have one of my former COs that is down there right now, that he is the executive officer down there at the Marine Barracks in Washington, D.C. And he wants me to head down there eventually with the family. Hopefully we were able to go to one of these evening parades next year to go down there and be the guest at the evening parade down there, our family to be the guest there. And I hope he's not planning on having us be like the guest of honor for the parade down there, and then they do the parade for me when I go down there. But I hope that's not the case. But knowing him, he's weird like that. But and I also want to congratulate him though, because he was also selected. He was a major, now he's getting selected to lieutenant colonel. So now he's going to get promoted, and man, it's amazing to see these young officers. You as a higher enlisted, when I was the battery gunnery sergeant down there, he was a brand new captain, you know, learning everything that he needed to learn. And the good thing about him is that he was a huge sponge. He listened to the leadership and he was able to take the guidance that we gave him and make his own decisions in the things that he wanted the units to do, especially down there in Fort Sill, because we had so many young Marines that were just coming into the Marine Corps straight out of MCT, Marine Combat Training, and they really didn't know anything. And so this was the very first kind of command that they were actually dealing with that they saw before they went into the fleet. And the way that the leadership was there was truly amazing. from us, the enlisted and the officers. They really took advantage of learning and understanding some of the things that, were needed to ensure that the unit ran as smoothly as possible. So big congratulations to him. And, hopefully we'll be able to make the trip down there here next year to go down there for his promotion ceremony. Are you looking for a photographer who can capture the most important moments in your life? Look no further than Miguel Saenz Photography. Miguel Saenz is an award-winning photographer with a passion for capturing the beauty and emotions of weddings, family portraits, and special events. With years of experience and a creative eye, Miguel Saenz will create stunning images that you'll treasure for years to come. Whether you're looking for a traditional wedding album, a unique family portrait, or a professional headshot for your business, Miguel Saenz Photography has the expertise to bring your vision to life. From the initial consultation to the final product, Miguel Saenz will work with you every step of the way to ensure that your images reflect your unique style and personality. Don't settle for mediocre photographs that simply document an event. Trust Miguel Saenz Photography to create timeless images that capture the essence of your special moments. Book your session today and experience the magic of Miguel Saenz Photography. Visit Miguel Saenz Photography online at miguelsciencephotography.com to see examples of his work and schedule your appointment today.
What we're gonna do right here is go back. Way back into time.
This week, as we make our continuing reading of our book with the 1st Marine Division in Iraq of 2003, we're going to look into 22 March 22nd, and how the division was progressing their attack to the west. Last week, we read about how the division, using RCT-5 and RCT-7, were making great progress as they crossed the border and were making their way all the way into Iraq and ensuring that the oil fields and everything else was secured and that there was going to be no issues from the Iraqi army as they made their progression. So let's go ahead and take a look and find out exactly what else happened on March 22nd as the division was attacking towards the west. On March 22nd, Blue Diamond engaged and destroyed isolated pockets of the 51st Mechanized Division of paramilitary resistance in the zone while consolidating, refitting, and rearming. Over the course of the day, the 1st UK Armored Division relieved the 1st Marine Division of the sector. The relief was accomplished in a contact zone and under fire, as the Iraqis in zone had withdrawn into the urban areas of the Al-Bara and Az Bazaria, waiting in the coalition to come after them. Emboldened groups of Iraqis attempted and opportunistically sortie out the attack coalition forces, but were bloodily repulsed by the Marines. As fighting continued during the day, the division took several hundred EPWs, or enemy prisoners of war, and passed them to the UK forces. Interrogations confirmed that the presence of some token Republican Guard elements amongst the regular army forces, but they had been no sign of any armored brigades. Even though the gun barrels had already cooled from the seizure of the initial strategic objectives, the division began to shift its momentum to the west in accordance with the MEF commander's intent to rapidly position Blue Diamond for its attack across the Euphrates. The division main CP made its way to the vicinity of the western edge of the assigned battle space, and by the evening had reassumed control. With an eye towards a rapid advance across the Euphrates, the division closely monitored TF Tarawa's progress in its own RIP with the U.S. 3rd Infantry Division south of An-Nazariya. The Army's planned attack of An-Nazariya had changed significantly since the early planning stages, and they had left the enemy combat forces in An-Nazariya largely untouched by their rapid attack to the western bridge site. It will now be up to the TF Tarawa to destroy the enemy's capability to influence the progress of the 1st Marine Division across the Euphrates. Tarawa's progress in conducting the RIP with the U.S. 1st Division, then eliminating the threat from the city, would dictate the timetable for the division's exploration attack across the Euphrates. The division continued coordination with Task Force Tarawa and prepared to support as possible. Screening to the northern flank of the division along the route of march, 1st Reconnaissance Battalion operated parallel to the Saddam Canal. Their mission was to provide early warning of enemy movements and prevent the enemy from posing a counterattack threat into the Western Moving Division's right flank, or from the north. The battalion established observation points and checkpoints near the existing rail and road bridges and monitored activity in a former marsh area north of Saddam Canal. Instead of tanks attacking from the north, Recon Battalion encountered hundreds of military-aged men in various states of civilian attire fleeing to the west. These were the remnants of the 51st Mechanized and 18th Infantry Divisions who had abandoned most of their uniforms and equipment and were now trying to get back to their homes. These former soldiers were more relieved and fearful when encountering U.S. forces. They told stories of the regime execution squads who were tasked with killing soldiers who retreated without orders and abandoned their posts. The crushed numbers precluded taking all of these unarmed men as EPWs. Instead, the Reconnaissance Battalion ensured they were no longer a threat and let them go on their way. Over the course of the day, Recon Battalion, they're screened to cover the area between the Saddam Canal and the Euphrates River. They continued to guard the bridge leading from the north, ensuring no organized counterattack could come across the water obstacles into the division's flank. To the north of the Reconnaissance Battalion, RCT-1 finished clearing Highways 1 and 8, which formed main supply route MSR Tampa. They formed a reconnaissance in force to the limits of the division zone. RCT-1 units reported a small number of tanks and technical vehicles moving west of the east of the north side of Saddam Canal, and the AH-A1W Cobra gunships were called in. While clearing MSR Tampa, RCT-1 encountered the same fleeing young men that the Recon Battalion had. Many of these former Iraqi combatants surrendered to RCT-1 that were also in their zone. One force secured the large Iraqi ammunition supply point in Al Jazeera with its large wall and fence compound, which was planned to become a major threater enemy prisoner of war or EPW holding area. Later in the day, after clearing the zone and coordinating with Task Force Tarawa, RCT-1 was finally cleared to move west in order to relieve Tarawa of the Euphrates River crossing points to the west of Al-Naziriyah. The Marines from RCT-1 passed through TF Tarawa zone and took ownership of the highway. One bridges across the Euphrates west of the city. RCT-1 then turned the bridges over to the Marines of the division's Technical Movement Coordination Center, or the TMCC, 3rd AA Battalion. The route was now clear of the division to continue the attack by bypassing and continuing fight into Al-Naziriyah. Having accomplished their primary objective, the Marines of RCT-1 turned their attention towards passing through Al-Naziriyah and becoming their supporting attack up Highway 7. There would be some delay here as RCT-1 would have to again pass through TF Tarawa's battle space. The force Tarawa was still engaged in Al-Naziriyah urban area, and there was some significant fighting required before the route would be open. Now, what they were talking about was that, just like they talked about when they were doing all their planning and all the rehearsals, and they were using the sand tables and the jerseys, the different colors that they use, this became an issue when you're actually in the battle space, because now units were crossing into other units' battle space, and because the fighting took longer or it was slower than they expected for it to be, this caused, I guess you could say, a reaction effect that the units had to wait while that area was cleared, and then once it was cleared, now they would be able to progress along their battle space. Now, this caused an issue, especially for us as we moved. We were utilizing Highway 1, moving through down there past Al-Naziriyah and those areas. So that forced us to stop. So it was like a major traffic jam right there on Highway 1, where we all stopped and just waited for our time for us to actually be able to continue to move forward and make our way down there towards Baghdad. So that became an issue, but it allowed us to stop a little bit, set security, and allowed us to catch up on a little bit more sleep. Since it had been 3 days since we were actually, all of us were able to actually go to sleep longer than maybe 15, 20 minutes at a time for us to continue our fight as we made our way down there from Al-Naziriyah and headed towards Baghdad. Hero highlight. Private First Class John Dury New, 19, was posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor for gallantry in action at the cost of his life in Peleliu, 25 September 1944. John D. New was born 12 August 1924 in Mobile, Alabama, and attended St. Joseph Parochial School in the public school of that city. He enlisted in the Marine Corps on 8 December 1941, the first mobile man to enlist after Pearl Harbor. On 12 December, he joined the 4th Recruit Battalion at the Marine Corps Recruit Depot, Parris Island, South Carolina, and followed recruit training served at Quantico, Virginia. In September of 1942, Private New joined the 4th Replacement Battalion Fleet Marine Force Training Center at San Diego, California. He sailed for duty overseas the following month and took part at the Guadalcanal campaign as a member of the 2nd Battalion, 7th Marines, 1st Marine Division. He shared the Presidential Unit Citation awarded the division on Guadalcanal. He later took part in the siege of the occupation of Cape Gloucester, New Britain, and in the defense of the airfield in the vicinity of Cape Gloucester. Promoted to Private First Class in April of 1944, he moved from Cape Gloucester to Pavuvu Russell Islands to Guadalcanal, and on 15 September 1944 sailed for Peleliu in the Palau Islands. 9 days later, he was killed in action on Peleliu when he flung himself on an enemy hand grenade to save the lives of 2 comrades. The Medal of Honor awarded PFC New posthumously was presented to his father. Initially buried in the U.S. Armed Forces Cemetery on Peleliu, PFC New's remains were re-entered into the Mobile Cemetery, Mobile, Alabama in 1948. The quarterdeck. So now we see how the division is making their way towards the west. And man, I got to tell you guys, while we were moving west, and that was basically our units that were moving down there close to cross the Euphrates River. And as we're going to see later on, my goodness, I don't even remember how many times we ended up crossing the Euphrates River because we went back and forth, not only the Euphrates though, but as you're going to see later on as we progress in our reading, the Tigris River was another one. We crossed both of these rivers so many times going back and forth, and that was to, elude the enemy on them not knowing exactly where we were going, what direction were we going in. So that was important for us to be able to do to ensure that they were not going to know and understand exactly where we were heading down there during that time. So we're going to continue with our reading of our book and find out more things that have been going on. And next week, we're going to take a look at how is the logistic tempo? How is that affecting the division? Because as we talked about, the division was moving greatly faster than they were originally planned for us to be heading down there towards Baghdad, and that became an issue. So that was something that we had to deal with as we made our way down there towards Baghdad. As we continue to talk about our heroes down there from World War II, my goodness, yet again, another great warrior during World War II, Private First Class John Dury New, he jumped on another grenade. Just like everybody that we've been reading about now, they jumped on a grenade in order to protect some comrades that were down there with him fighting in there. Now for him, this happened to him down there in Guadalcanal, but my goodness, it just goes to show how tradition has not changed from back then until now. The Marines are willing to give their life for somebody that is next to them in the fight to protect them instead of protecting their own life. We're going to continue with this reading next week and find out more about another hero down there in World War II. But I want to take this opportunity to go ahead and thank everybody that has continued to listen to the podcast every single week. Man, I can tell by looking at our analytics of see how many people are listening to the podcast, and our numbers are increasing. And that I got to thank you guys for. So those of you that have been loyal listeners and listening to me every single week, I appreciate it. And remember, continue to share the links with your friends, your families, your loved ones, or anybody that you may think that may be interested in finding out a little bit more about the Marine Corps and joining us in our journey as we see what the 1st Marine Division went through in Iraq of 2003 as they made their way to liberate that country from the regime of Saddam Hussein. Now, later on, we'll continue and find out exactly what the division was going through as they progressed through that, but that'll be in the weeks to come. So until then, you guys enjoy your weekend, have fun, spend time with the family, enjoy, and we'll see everybody here next week. So until next time, this is Miguel, the Gunny Signs, sounding Liberty Call.
Get out the bus!
I do solemnly swear.
That I will support and defend
The Constitution of the United States.
against all enemies, foreign and domestic.